It's Craig.
All right. Well, why don't we just first talk about the proposal, and if anybody has any questions, since it's pretty intimate group here, everyone just jump in and chat or drop it in the chat. We're going to keep it pretty macro level, not go too deep into the exact I guess specifics, but I guess what I guess the motivation for making this whole pivot was, we really tried to explore, well, we did explore optimistic rollups as much as we could, and they just didn't deliver on what they were really promised to do just yet, and it doesn't look like they're going to anytime soon. So, with all the new gameplay that kind of gameplay proposals that emerged from people playing the alpha, Red and I just realized that, we're not going to be future-proof doing the optimistic roll-up path. We could have probably done it with a very simple game, and but to get a really rich ecosystem flourishing with an on-chain game, it's just not going to happen. And I think probably the future of optimistic rollups are going to be maybe cheap NFTs, but there's no gaming is going to happen on them. DeFi will happen on them, but true composable, I guess liquid games with millions of players is not going to happen on an optimistic rollup. So really, the only options are the only options are doing a sketchy sidechain like Polygon or BSC, but obviously we're not going to do that. We never were going to do that. wasn't an option. So the answer is really zero knowledge proof rollups. And when we started 2 months ago, they wasn't even a viable option, and we didn't think they were actually going to get here as quick as they have, and they are still early. Let's be honest with that. It is early, but they are developing very, very fast. And you can probably see just the buzz and excitement around them if you're just on Twitter. You can just you can see what's happening. I think what ZK Zinc has raised 50 million. In a round, and StarkNet, Starkware just raised another 50 million, valued at 2 billion valuation. So they are really the future of Ethereum's, modular design. And they, in my opinion, everyone's obviously going to have their own opinion about what's going to happen in the future. But in my opinion, they basically make all other L1 layer 1 blockchains, probably excluding Bitcoin, kind of every other layer 1 smart contract platform, basically irrelevant. And in a sense, they will make optimistic rollups also irrelevant, although they'll probably hang around for quite a while. But the question is, if you have the option to lock up your capital for 7 days or not, you're clearly not going to. And ZK is basically offer near instant withdrawals from the ZK rollup back onto the main chain. So, yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Red? Just before I.
No, probably just that it's early days, I guess, and that we haven't really, no one's worked out what the relative advantages are going to be of optimistic over ZK in the long term. So maybe there will be certain use cases that evolve.
But I guess
it's early.
Yeah. I guess the way that I see it, and I'm working on this. Maybe I'll just actually. We're working on a pretty just a more in-depth document on this to kind of just explain our entire vision around this. But it really comes down to, from a really comes there's this I call it the three C's for really true composable games to happen, all on chain. And it's like this is what a network has to have. It has to have composability, it has to be cheap, and it has to have a lot of computational power. And really, those three things can only exist within a ZK rollup. So, yeah, that's the key. And yeah, this is what we're exploring with the ZK rollups. And we've been pushing hard in the whole loot space for this, and every developer that I've talked to, there's some amazing developers in the whole loot space. Everyone's on board and understands our reasoning behind all this. So I think there's going to be a total rush to dive in and start building in this whole new design space. So we're in good company, and this is the bleeding edge of crypto right now. But we are future proofing ourselves, and this is how we get to 1 million players. You have to have cheap transactions, otherwise everything just gets stuck. So, yeah, I mean that's really that's really the high level view of why we're doing what we're doing. It's the three C's, and we've got Red, myself, Zeldian, Unideft, DHAM's about to dive in, and there's a bunch of other developers in the loot space all exploring Starkware. So, we're at this point right now where we've developed the game logic, and we've developed the kind of the macro, the micro gameplay, all on Solidity contracts. But we're rewriting them into Cairo, and so that's where we're at right now. We're kind of in the exploration and rewriting point of view stage right now. So yeah, it's there's a couple of huge also innovations that happen in a ZK rollup. There's one thing called an account abstraction, which basically means in Ethereum you have accounts and you have contracts, and accounts are this way to explain that they can't be programmable. So account is obviously different to a contract, and obviously a contract is a smart contract, and it can be executed and it can do things, but account can't. Account has to sign transactions to do something, and it just holds funds. But in StarkNet, your account can actually be a contract, which means that it can be programmable in itself, which is a totally new design space to explore.
So how do you think that would be used in sort of realms settling, just for an example?
Yeah, well, there's a couple. Yeah, I mean, think about what a multi-sig is. A multi-sig is kind of like a programmable kind of account, in a sense. Like it's a basic one. So what we're thinking is what this account abstraction does is it enables like almost miniature DAOs to and accounts that can be actioned on consensus to do things a lot easier than a multi-sig can. So some of the ideas, and everyone should really kind of just brainstorm on this as well. But some of the things are like we make a miniature DAO for each order, and if you're part of that order, you can send funds into this a DAO account, and that DAO account could actually have the functionality to build its own army, and then that could be the start of a war between two orders, for example. Or there could be a microtransaction that happens on everything, and then some of that gets funneled into the mini DAO, which then once it gets to a point, you could declare war on another order. That's just one thing that we're exploring. But yeah, as I said, like this has kind of been the holy grail for Ethereum developers the last 3 years, is this account abstraction idea, and Starkware have actually done it. So there's going to be a lot of other things that emerge from that. So yeah, Ray, do you want to add anything else to that?
Probably the Validium side of things is also very cool with Starkware. They basically, obviously, the big cost on Ethereum is storage, and storing things on chain. Where Starkware is actually releasing this solution they called Volition, where you can actually choose where your data is stored and access that data in a provable way. So that has massive implications for decreasing cost as well, and coming up with so
Even further.
yeah, and way more things that you can do as well, just by having that data off chain and not having to pay for it. So we're excited to play around with that.
Mm. Yeah, that's going to be a huge paradigm shift in the whole blockchain space. Anyone got any questions like about anything we just talked about? Everyone just jump in. You know, so there's not many of us.
Hey, this is Andy.
Hey, mate.
Would this be the first game on StarkNet, or game of this type, or?
Yeah, well, I've been pushing for this terminology. I think you guys may have seen me drop it around, but it's we're calling it a MMO CCG, which means massively multiplayer online composable game on chain. Sorry.
And you coined that, is that right? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully it catches on. I think it's pretty descriptive. But there's this whole like kind of move to StarkNet. Obviously, like it's the gas things, but like there's been quite a bit of inspiration by the Dope Wars guys. Actually, the Dope Wars lead dev called Parama. You may have seen his notes being chucked around the place, but he basically I've been talking to him directly, and he's a super smart guy. I have no idea where he's based, but the Dope Wars is also building a game on StarkNet, but nothing's actually launched on StarkNet yet. Like we're like pre-mainnet launch, so it's really just applications that are being built right now, but nothing's actually on it. So, but from my knowledge, that it's Dope Wars and us the only real game. Oh, there's a couple other games building on it, sorry, but none have actually launched. So. Couple of what was that space one? Oh god, it's like a space resource based one that just decided to move to StarkNet as well. Like a lot of people are doing it once they kind of understand the value proposition of it and like the true scalability of it. It comes back to the 3 Cs that I was saying before. Like that's crucial for games to actually be viable and really get to massive scale. Because the reality is, we're obviously early in the ETH game, and we've got a bunch of, we've got a bunch of ETH. But the reality is, the next 100 million people coming into the blockchain, they can't afford huge gas transactions. Like it's just not, they're not going to play. Like we can just eat it because we've probably amassed some ETH, but we're not going to see 100 million billion people on chain until transactions are pennies. So, yeah. But yeah, the just one thing on ZKs, which it's not that technical, but like think of it like this is really what they do is that they imagine like a super complex program running. What ZKs do is they basically run the program and they create this proof, and then that proof is what they submit back into on chain in a simple point of view. But the main chain doesn't have to run that program again, so it just verifies the proof of the program that the program's run, which means that a 1,000-line program or a 100-line program, they're miles difference in their complexity and their computational power, they actually cost the same amount to verify. So you can create these incredibly computationally expensive programs and they create a proof from them, and then that's what gets validated. So it's a whole new design space that's kind of being starting to be explored in that regard. Which means you can do like, crazy, physics calculations that are provable, crazy combat, simulations and whatnot that are all verifiable. Yeah. Any other questions about that specifically? I just suggest everyone just dive in and read as much as you read as much as you can about it. Like if you're not technical, don't just skip over the super technical parts, but like try to just zoom out and just think. I think everybody here is clearly early in the space and really grasps what blockchains can do, but for blockchains to really realize what their true capacity, which is removing all intermediaries from industries, this ZK rollups is how it's going to happen.
I've got a question.
So the Dark Lord himself.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
I was gonna ask because obviously, Loot was born as a fully on-chain game and idea, and I know that you guys were hoping to keep everything on chain, but how is it gonna work with StarkNet? Because obviously they've got different hybrid systems, and which obviously they're gonna allow us to maybe create something a bit more complicated, maybe have some actual objects maybe in the game. How is that gonna work? Are we gonna store part of the assets off chain and then do the logic on chain, or is it gonna be everything on chain as we were originally supposed to do on F?
I think that we'll do as much as possible on chain, but Pyro can actually, Starkware could. I mean, it is a future where you could run provable programs and verify them on chain as well. So we want to do as much as possible on chain because the real benefit of doing this. Or having all the liquid assets on chain and all the actions is that it can, this game can scale to 1 million people with, no centralized infrastructure. That's kind of the goal for us is that, we can scale this game, we can scale this game to 1 million people in theory, all playing on, with the StarkNet backend with just a UI client that interacts with it. And so, you add on, you keep stacking on 100,000 players, and we don't need to increase our server capacity. Because if you look at Axie and, a lot of these other games that are running, they're hybrid, they just store their, the NFTs on chain, but all the metadata and everything's off chain, all the interactions, that all happens off chain. And so you need to scale your game, with your players, basically, because your servers are taking load. Whereas we're trying to use the StarkNet as the total, backend for this. But obviously some things will be, off-chain, the UI and, some, I don't know, maybe some graphics, obviously graphics and stuff. But all that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's literally what I was kind of thinking in my head, also because we've seen as you said Axie, that I think in January this year was something around 20,000 users per month or something like that, and then obviously they scaled up to I think they reached something like 1 million at the top just 6 months down the line. And obviously they are keeping all of their infrastructure and assets on off chain, as a normal classic a normie game. I think like an idea like what's we are trying to create with realms is kind of like just like unprecedented. It could be like super great, and I think it can get like a lot of people attention. I can just like think about like Vitalik maybe like creating something like a World of Warcraft like game on StarkX, if something like that is possible, obviously.
Yeah, I think. The challenging thing is obviously the graphics part of it, because you can't really store that on chain, but all the computation and interactions you can. Well,
Obviously, like with realms, it's gonna be easier because it's kind of like real RTS, right? So like Age of Empires, you don't really need the graphic to actually like play the game, and obviously like
No.
what people care about the most, it's earning money. But no, I honestly, we've been talking about it already. I think that's where it just makes sense, especially for the gaming sector of the blockchain, just to kind of progress to, because obviously like we've seen recently OpenSea and Uniswap, they're just like just transacting NFTs is just clogging the network, and it's literally unusable. One transaction is like $100. You're lucky maybe if you want to send some money, and that's probably gonna be the cheapest option. But obviously like if you can make like the best game that you want, but then if each transaction will cost you like a lot of money, then that game is not viable anymore, right?
exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly the point, right? Like we want, the goal is to get to 1 million people, and actually there's 8,000 realms, but this is just the beginning, and we see realms as just the center of the kind of the lootverse, and generating the productive assets in this whole economy. But being on StarkNet, we can enable 1 million people to play the game with the loot bags or whatever that comes out of it next. So yeah, but yeah, it's but in terms of like development speed and stuff, like I'm not. I don't think it's going to take us like that much longer to get to like a production launch. Like it's going to take obviously a bit longer, and like we want obviously release the game as soon as possible. But like if we'd done everything on Arbitrum, then it would have just cost everyone gas. And the last thing you want to do is just spend your hard-earned ETH on gas. So. We just want to get on a path where people don't have to spend gas, and people can play the game rather than just paying gas.
I think it's very fair, and I think it's like the right thing to do. At the end of the day, like onboarding those people into using like a new structure, a new chain. At the end of the day, most of people already do, especially because they kind of like are promised airdrop or a way to earn money, which especially with this play to earn system is what people it's the kind of like motivation and reason why people should not be like kind of like they would be able to surpass the barrier and just like jump straight on it, like a leap of faith into StarkNet. I mean, I've never used it. I'm actually like kind of curious, and I was looking at the documentation last night, and it looks pretty incredible, especially compared to what Solidity can achieve, and the way how obviously Solidity architecture is kind of like has been built in order to just save on transaction fees, do like simple functions on chain, and then you go like this all like basically like a full-on engine on chain. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, Solidity was never really like mainnet was never really designed to do computationally expensive things. It was always just meant to be a data settlement layer, and it's kind of realized that now as this distributed network. But now it's the modular, ZK roll-up chains, and more of them will appear. Now it's their responsibility to take the actual, scalability, but with the security of Ethereum to the next level.
Yeah, agreed. And also like well, obviously I got a couple more questions. So now that we're gonna delay, well, obviously like this is pretty set in stone as far as it sounds. And what's gonna happen like in between the bridge, obviously between Arbitrum F and to StarkNet? What's gonna happen in the meantime? You guys are gonna, because I guess you guys have to learn Cairo, which is the StarkNet Starkware language, whatever, and obviously like just move everything onto the other chain. Like how, because I can hear like some of the lords are like, oh, obviously like they want to start staking their NFTs, earning like lords token, and all of that, like people are really patient in the blockchain. So yeah, if you got any.
Yeah, well, we want to we want to reward the lords as much as possible. We're all in this together. So we're open to ideas, but we're probably in terms of learning Cairo, we've already dived into it and we've got a good grasp on it all. It's not. It looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. It's actually similar, and it's similar to Solidity. It's just got a bit more, a few more things you need to include in your functions and whatnot, and a few different things. But if you're coming from Solidity, it's not that difficult to understand. But in terms of what we do before, like this is open to vote, but we want, like, the Lord's token is obviously going to be a big liquidity, big opportunity for liquidity to kind of bootstrap the platform and the network more. So we're exploring ways we can start distributing that somehow, and we're open to suggestions in how we want to do that, because it's a collective decision. But there might be a future to exist where we we bring out staking first on StarkNet, start distributing the lords, and then we build a game around that after, which gives the early adopters more, rewards the early adopters more than people come in later. But that's everything's just up in the air right now, and we're open to discuss. Look, there's definitely a big urge to drop a token, but the last thing we want to do is just drop a token that doesn't have a without providing the value, because it's like last thing we want to do is just provide a shit coin, and just get people in here that are just looking for it to moon straight away.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. It's definitely the urge to do it, because you can see so many crappy games just dropping tokens, and they don't even have a concept. Like, they're just a landing page. It's the last thing.
Yeah, literally. Like it's funny how Star Atlas. I don't know if if you know like what project that is. Basically, like they dropped the token, a few months ago, and they said that the actual game was gonna be ready between 3 and 7 years, which is fucking ridiculous.
3 and 7 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
After raising money.
I mean, it's pretty bold. I mean, like you gotta have like some pretty big balls to say that.
Jesus Christ, 3 to 7
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime in this space.
I know. Yeah, obviously, like I see your point. Also because let's say you do an airdrop, and let's say like the most common, you do like an airdrop to the rounds holder, and there's this new token that is tradable on Uniswap, and people are like, oh, okay, but what can I do with this coin? Basically nothing till the game is actually live, which obviously like it makes no sense to be traded with. But like and which I'm completely I completely agree with you. But then on the other side is there is the other point, which is kind of like a gold and loot, which obviously I mean, I'm not completely like against the idea of like airdropping like a token. I think like what happened with Agold and Loot, which I think it kind of like ruined a bit the ecosystem, just because like so many people have been burned from it. Usually what happens is like the speculation drives evolution, and in this case like technology evolution. And I think because people will, people that are on the blockchain, they're always looking for the next like coin to be traded, especially like play to earn. And I think like just having that kind of like extra audience, which is like the traders on Uniswap, or even just like people that they're looking for like a play to earn coin that might be something that is like, just for me, it's not the actual value of the token that is important, but it's more like the getaway for those people to actually get to know what's going to happen in realms, and getting them on board early. So I think it's something I would love you guys to just like think about it, because I think it's like a great idea. Like in the past year, we have seen some I'm kind of like follow a lot of like display to earn projects. And something that I've seen is like, for example, like Illuvium, which I think is going to be like pretty big. They just release, I think, like 2 or 3% of the total supply, which is not much, right? Just as basically like just as a taste of what's gonna happen in the future, and just to get the coin out there in the wild, and obviously like just accruing more holders and people interested in the game. So I think that's probably like an idea that could be good for to do like something to do like in the meantime. You guys will develop the bridge to StarkNet and develop the game over there.
That's the it's a good point, and I've definitely thought about that too. But I mean, look, it's definitely something we can think about. I don't have a total answer on that just yet. But it's, I mean, maybe we be one of the first. I don't know if we can airdrop it on StarkNet. I mean, we could be a path where we enable staking as the first part of the game on StarkNet, like straight away, and that distributes the token. That's a path. That's a pretty innovative way to do it. But yeah, I can't. I don't know which way to do it, to be honest. Just yet, we'll have to think about that deep.
Yeah, no, obviously, like I wasn't expecting like a solution, like an answer or a solution straight away. Just like just throwing ideas out there, because
we can all talk about it as a community, and
exactly. I think that's that's what's probably like the best option. Even like maybe like an announcement, or even like in the forum you guys have created. I think it's a good idea.
It's people go mental over tokens. That's what scares me a little bit. And people just expect things to moon because they've seen coins 1000x, and then you get people that are just trying to speculate and pump it without any real without any real input into the community. But I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's why I think like it has to be like thought through, and if we find like a balance, let's say like as a community, and say maybe like not airdrop all of it, maybe like there is a vesting, I'm just like throwing ideas, right? Like a vesting period, or maybe like just drop like a very small part, and maybe just do like some side kind of like side things that you can do with this token in the meantime, because obviously like it's gonna take time for you guys to move on to StarkNet. So
Uh,
the thing is, like, also from the Lord's point of view, the non-core Lord's point of view, like, how, like, what are we gonna do, like, in the meantime, like, leading till then? What can we expect? What are we gonna do? Just because, like, again, like, I know how the crypto market, like NFTs and tokens, whatever, like, works, and people lose patience. Like, people like, in 2 days, if there is no news, they just jump onto the next ship. I actually think that Realms is probably, like, one of the most solid community out there, just because it's everything is great. Well, you know that anyway. But yeah, I think, obviously, like, also attracting other people, which is important. I think it's going to be like a good tool in a way, to just get more people on board and just get the name of Realms out there. Because, to be honest, like, why, like, I don't see the point why loot at this point is above Realms, as in, like, I think what the guys, well, what you guys are building on Realms, it's just like, I'm like way bigger than what loot can achieve, right? So loot, I think in the future, like, loot is gonna be just a part of Realm. It's gonna be like one of those unique cases where, like, a derivative just completely takes over, and just like, oh, what is this now? And it's like a full on, like, Age of Empires on Ethereum, which is like, what? Like, everyone would want to play it.
yeah. Well, I think our core focus right now is rewriting these the structure of the Cairo contracts, and we are there are a few, like, we've taken all the feedback from the alpha and all the new gameplay, and taken inspiration from Dope Wars, in a sense, in its modularity, and we're the way that we're designing this next, we're able to be extended by any community member that can propose a module. So what do we mean by that is we have the core modules which can communicate with one another. So let's say there's a settling module and there's an army module, building module, and there's a war module, and they can all communicate with one another. But a community member can then come along and, well, let's make a multi-war module, or some module that talks to all the other ones, but isn't necessarily designed by the core developers. And the community can then vote to include that into the game, basically. And if it gets enough votes, it gets included into the game, and the gameplay expands. So that's the way that we're redesigning this game. And at the same time, that's what we're just working on. Unidev's doing some great things. Zeldian's exploring some crazy design space in terms of the computation capacity. I don't know if you want to just drop a couple hints, Zeldian, to everyone what you're doing, or we can just talk about it next time. But up to you.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to implement Open Simplex with Cairo. Doing my best.
Yeah, I'm sure not many, probably no one knows what Open Simplex is. If you want to explain
It's
it.
a derivative of Perlin noise, if anybody knows what that is. It's used for, like, terrain. It's just a noise function, basically.
But yeah, so we're going to use that to generate some kind of generative dungeon, all within the contract.
Okay, that's pretty great. Yeah, actually, what engine are you using? Are you just gonna be able to do that on Cairo, Zeldin?
Yeah. So I'm just basically porting over. Open Simplex is an implementation of the actual algorithm is called Simplex, and so it's an implementation of that written in Python. So I'm just porting that over, and it's just basically copying the functionality. It uses pseudo-random numbers to generate values. So but predictable. So We can use it to make cave systems and stuff like that, or terrain.
Yeah, it sounds
It's
gnarly.
impressive.
But yeah, that's the other thing that we want to explore before we launched is like the whole game is kind of this will get people interested in show people that we're the real deal is these miniature type games which aren't going to be they're not going to take a massive amount of development, but they'll lead people in. They'll be within the Realmverse, and they might be a miniature game we can do before we launch the whole game. Because the whole game obviously is, it's a lot more complex, because there's a lot of micro macro economics that we need to build into it, so it doesn't, suddenly get hyperinflation or whatnot. Like what we've talked about for the last couple of months, like. There's all those little intricacies that we need to fine tune. But in the meantime, we could really bring out this like miniature game, like what Zeldian's working on, which is like a miniature dungeon crawler or something that all Realm players can play. That's like kind of outside the scope of the main Realm game specifically, but like within the Realmverse. That will get us a lot of visibility too. So
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I can chime in just quickly on that. That sounds awesome. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah, I think even if you had some kind of game that was playable, it's still almost like a first. It's the thing that everybody's been waiting for
definitely
from Loot is, we've got this, and that's what people have been saying since it dropped. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to be great for a little while, and then people are going to say, where's the game? So just to throw something out to kind of whet their appetite and show them that, this is legit, this is real. And to kind of get their minds going, and it's just a great hook to bring them in too, and they can start thinking about it, and they start learning about as we develop it. Just like put teasers in of like orders or teasers in for, if there's something in there that just little teasers that don't require a lot of development. I think that sounds like a dynamite idea, and I'm just thinking myself as a marketer for this. So if there's a game that's going on, I could just tell everybody like, hey, you should go check out the game. Like go into the Realms Biblioteca channel and check out the game, buy a Realm and play the game. That's dynamite. Love the idea.
Yeah, that's exactly exactly what we were thinking. Because it will just, we want to keep people, interested in the whole system. But this will be like a little quick stepping stone to show the capability of StarkNet before the main game gets dropped. So that's what we're working on. And the other thing, we'd love everybody's input on this is the docs. I've kind of been in kind of pseudocode and conceptual mode for this last week and doc mode because this is a way that I design. I think about. I'm just like we learned so much in the last month. I'm just I'm kind of rethinking some of the ways that we did things in the past, which is a good thing because I'm not a one to get sunk cost fallacy. Like if this is a better way to do it, let's do the better way. You never write a program the best way the first time. It's just the truth. Nobody does. So we're just rethinking a bunch of things: the account abstraction, the increased computation capacity, all these things. We're just kind of in deep research mode and just reevaluating how we're doing some of these functions and whatnot. But just on topic of marketing and whatnot, where the docs page themselves are open source, so they can be written in Markdown. Markdown is just anybody can do it. It's really simple. But you can basically write in GitHub. If you have a GitHub, you can just go and like propose a page. Like so, we know we've been trying to chunk it out, but we've been doing this along with pseudo writing and learning Cairo and whatnot. But anybody in the community that wants to come along and just like do a chunk of it, I've put a bunch of headings that are kind of incomplete, or I'll just suggest everybody just read through it, and if we've missed things, like we've obviously missed probably some things, But this is the kind of these are the docs that we want to send the next cohort of people to. So we really want everybody's input into this, and make it the best possible explanation of realms, because information is a bit fragmented right now. Let's be real. We're doing these calls and on ideas popping up left, right, and center in loot and in realms, and so all the like Plur, your 4 parts of the orders, you could do a section, propose a section into the docs directly. I'd love you to do that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. So if you just if you got a GitHub account?
I don't, but I could set one up.
Okay, yeah, just set one up, and I can run you through it later how you do it. But it's super easy. I mean, if you can write a Word Markdown document, it's not code at all. It's just a way to write documentation. So yeah, we're just kind of deep doing the docs, and I'm gonna probably, after the docs are done, I'm going to spend some time and just kind of redo the Biblioteca realm side of things with a more graphic design landing page, which we can direct people to as well. That's kind of the marketing aspect we're taking. And if anyone else help out with that, that'd be great. Any other questions right now, Ben?
I just noticed that this morning there was a drop. We brought it up a little bit in the channel, but there was a drop on somebody that created a random dungeon generator. I know Pransky bought a bunch of it.
Oh, you mean legendary maps?
I think that's what it was called. It had like a picture of like a wizard on it, and I don't think it's revealed yet.
Yeah, legendary maps. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're not in the loot ecosystem, so I was just wondering, and it seems like it's semi-related. Just to know if you guys had thoughts on that.
Yeah, I actually reached out to those guys like a month ago. First started their Discord, and I told them what we're doing, and they seemed interested. But I think this is the tragic point of the market right now. In any project that's trying to these on-chain dungeon crawls or whatnot, is that everything's just, when gas is at its current prices, everything just gets stuck. It's like a roadblock. Nobody wants to do anything. And the gas price. The reality is, gas prices aren't they're only going to get more expensive on the main chain. This is why everybody's got to move to layer 2s. I really hope those guys are thinking about that. But they could easily port their not easily, but they could do their version 2 on StarkNet. I might actually reach out to them again about that. But they look like they're doing some cool things. But I still haven't seen what you can actually do with it. It might just be I think they're being a bit ambitious, thinking that people are going to do a dungeon crawl on mainnet, unless it's that gets built into off-chain engine somehow. But
yeah, it's strange. It's like they were going to make a subsequent drop to the people who bought the first one of a character. So it's almost like they're recreating a loot ecosystem. So I thought it'd be great to, instead of having a competitor, bring them together. But that brings up another question that I had too, as a non-coder, is you do this and you create this layer 2 that you're going, and all of it's, from my non-coder perspective, it sounds awesome. Is it going to, are you paving the way for the rest of the loot ecosystem so that they, once you do it, you've pioneered it for everybody, and then really not even only just the loot ecosystem, but the entire NFT ecosystem going on to layer 2? Is that how significant the stuff that you guys are doing is, or am I just overthinking it?
In a sense, I mean, we're not going to be the only ones doing this. But yes, at this point in time, what we're proposing. Like, we want to make it as easy as possible for developers to jump, to jump from L1 to L2. And obviously, we're starting with the loot first, but the tools that we make will allow other developers to do. And then, like, you get this flywheel effect when more developers jump on. And this is like kind of analogous to, I guess, any software and development speed of any software. The most valuable thing anybody can contribute is time and like human capital. Like actual capital, is important, but the most valuable thing that can be put into an ecosystem is human capital. And so what we're hoping, and what we've kind of started it, is all the developers in the loot ecosystem start building on StarkNet, and you get this flywheel effect of, more tools get developed faster, and the composability across the tool increases. And so then, in turn, increases the development speed even further. And I think it's going to happen very fast on StarkNet. It kind of feels like Solidity back in 2015, because Solidity back in 2015 was hard to develop on. Like, it was, I think I remember looking at it, but I didn't dive in because I wasn't as proficient as I am now. And I just thought it was like, it was very rough edges. All the tooling was pretty primitive, but obviously it was probably the most valuable thing to do back then. If you were willing to do it. I think I got distracted with other things, but this Cairo and ZK technology feels like that technology back then, basically, in my opinion. And obviously the whole ecosystem has just exploded. So it's only going to grow faster than Ethereum did.
Wow, that's super exciting. And another question too. Sorry if it's super basic, but when you get this StarkNet going, does that also mean if people are buying and selling realms, that's going to like basically eliminate the gas fees for doing NFT transactions?
Yeah, basically. Just one technical part of ZK rollups is that the proof that they generate, it can be submitted in a batch back to layer one, back to the main chain. So, you could have 100,000 transactions in that batch, basically. So then that cost gets amortized across everything, fraction, cent, basically, and it will scale further than that as well. Like transfers within the system, within StarkNet will be super cheap. Super cheap. I mean, you can look at basically what a mutable X on an mutable X, but what they have done, they're not using StarkNet, but they're using StarkX, which is StarkWares, which is the company. StarkX is like StarkWares, it's like their trading kind of software platform that uses zero knowledge proofs. And what Immutable X has done is they've basically created an API wrapper around it. So anybody that has like basic skills just mint like millions of NFTs for a fraction of a cent. And because they're all because of all their customers in the same backend, then they submit all proofs at once, and they get the cost per NFT or transfer down to a fraction of a cent. So yeah.
So it'll, the bigger the ecosystem gets or the game gets, then the cheaper transactions get. And If somebody's going to buy or sell a realms, it's going to cost the same as if you're going to, attack somebody else in the PvP part of the game.
Correct. Yeah, and exactly. Like there's the one. Pretty much. Yeah. Mm.
That's awesome. I mean, this is so cool. Just another, explicative here, but it's just so cool that, listening. We're relatively small, but like the level at which you have to think. I feel like I'm listening to like a Tesla earnings call, where we have to think so globally. And like Elon Musk is the only other guy I ever hear say something like, money's great, But what we really need is, money can't buy you everything. We need like people, we need talent, and we need to like build these human systems. So like, it's just super exciting the way you guys are thinking and the stuff that's going on. Super excited to be a part of all this.
Yeah, thank you. You're being a great contributor as well. And Red and I, and Zeldy and the other developers, Unideft. The way that I see all this is, we're just the custodians of the code, but it's this collective, brain of all of us that's building these games and building this like next generation type of network where we can all coordinate together over this shared economic goal. That's what got me so bored with this whole space, and I'm a pseudonym, and we're all just anonymous, and like doesn't matter. It's like all that matters is what we do. I truly believe that. Like what we're doing, what we're all doing, is how everybody else is in a few years' time. Well, not everybody, but like this is going to be how a big chunk of networks get developed in the future. Yes, it's exciting. Any other anything about anything? Questions?
I think someone had a question about the cost of bridging to Starkware.
Yeah, mother.
Yeah, which StarkNet hasn't actually launched yet, so no one really knows what the fees are. They're a bit hard to predict in a system like that until it starts running. But yeah, I mean, you are still most likely going to have to submit a layer 1 transaction, which is where most of the cost comes from, unfortunately. But
that's basically build. Yeah.
We're doing everything we can to minimize the cost of that bridging.
Yeah, it's just This is just back to what I was saying before about the layer 1 stock. Is think about all the realms exist on layer 1 right now, and to transfer, and basically how staking is, because it's not fair if you stake your realm and then you can sell your realm, right? So you need to transfer ownership basically to of your realm to the to the staking contract. That's basically how these work. And that transfer event of writing to Ethereum that now you've transferred ownership to the staking contract is going to cost gas.
There are other ways around it, like the mirror contract and so on, but like we really don't want to have two different versions. You've got a layer 1 realm and then a layer 2 realm. I think it gets too confusing and fragments things too much. So that's it.
As well.
That's a discussion we can have as a community once we've got a bit more idea on the phase.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, if there's no other questions, then I mean we'll start having some more. I'm thinking that I don't know. I haven't talked with the other developers about this, but I'm thinking maybe we have like a specific dev chat where the developers just we all just like talk about stuff once a week, as well as a collective community call, and the dev chat will just be us talking about things that's happened that week specifically.
Sounds good.
Anyway, anyone can just tune in, and that's going to be some high level stuff, but there'll be some interesting chats going on. That's for sure.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm game.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks. Popped in, but I think we'll probably just end it there if there's no other questions.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for tuning in.
All right.
See you guys. Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.